Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalrin, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing you guys everything that is new with Feral Druids for patch 8.1. I looked over on YouTube, I typed in search engine Feral changes for 8.1, and not a lot came up. So I felt like making an update for this class, since Feral is something that I actually kind of quite enjoyed back in Legion, even though I played it very casually. But I'm still interested to see what kind of update Ferals are getting in this patch. Anyway, in this video, I just want to take a look at everything I have. Before we go on, I do not have a max level Feral. I wish I had a max level Feral so I can show you some synergies with the Azeroth pieces. So if you're a Feral main, keep in mind everything that I say, and it's going to be a good idea to test everything that I talk about on PTR. I just want to kind of go over everything that is new with Feral, everything that I found new, and just overall everything that has changed with Feral since last time I played it. So some of these things might have been the things that you guys have known about, or might just be finding out right now. So let's go over everything that Feral is looking like it's getting changed in 8.1. Now I will say this one first, I don't really know about the first row. I don't know when this change happened, but I don't remember Sabretooth being there in first row, but I feel like it fits better for a single target build. Loot Inspiration is a common point builder, very popular in PvP. Predator is effective if a bunch of enemies are dying, so it could be really good for AOE situations where there's a lot of enemies and trash packs to pull. Sabretooth fits in there because it's more of a common point play, so you have energy to build common points, or common point generation from a distance and extra dot, or simply manipulating your ferocious bite, so kind of like you don't have to spend as many common points on rips, but rather bite does everything for you. So it's like the value tree, and works well in single target, and I guess this is like the single target row, although Predator I feel like can't have single target and AOE potential. It fits it better regardless. Some of the biggest changes to Feral, they wanted to change up your AOE tree and how that functions. The first talent is Scent for Blood. Each enemy hit by Thrash reduces the cost of your next swipe by 3 energy for next 6 seconds. So at first, it's just exactly as it says. If I hit 3 enemies and I have myself swipe at 35 energy, now it's down to 26 energy. So when I use it, my swipe is still going to be 26 energy depending on how many enemies I hit. This allows me to build a lot more common points, so the more enemies I hit, the less expensive my swipe is for the next 6 seconds. So if I hit 4 enemies here, I'm gonna, let's say I just try to go and build up a bunch of rips on multiple enemies. So I'm gonna hit them with a Thrash, so then my swipe is gonna be inexpensive. I'm gonna pop a rip, I'm gonna go swipe, swipe, rip, I can just swipe, Thrash again, swipe, swipe, rip, and I can swipe some more and maybe generate enough common points. Alright, so about 4 or 5 common points on every single enemy. This allows you a bit more energy spending. Especially great if you're going to be in with trash packs where there's a lot of enemies, but also decent when there's trash packs with like 2, 3, 4 enemies where you can thrash and you can swipe to hit everybody, but also have more chance to generate extra common points. I feel like it'll be a niche in Mythic Plus dungeons. I don't think this will be the best for PvP, unless maybe you're doing RBGs and you're just trying to spin the flag the whole time. And in that case, I feel like maybe Guardian Druid might be better because they're a lot, far tankier. Anyway, decent talent. My question, I guess, is, does it work with bear form? Because Thrash, isn't that, yeah, it is an ability for bear. It is instant for bear, though. So it doesn't have any kind of synergies here. Although it would be interesting if in bear form it had a synergy, maybe if it deals more damage. So if for whatever reason you do have to go into bear form as a Feral Druid, maybe your Thrashes could be a lot more effective. I don't really know. That is an interesting, yeah, it would be interesting if there was some kind of a cool synergy for it, so there's like extra to this ability than what's on the, on the outside. Okay, now that we've dropped combat, I want to show you some of the other talents. Brutal Slash is exactly the same as it was, they just buffed it. Instead of being 60 attack power, it's 69. I feel most of you guys have seen what this ability is. It's exactly the same. I don't know how good it is at max level, but I just haven't really seen that many. Maybe it is the best option right now. But the talent bars are definitely different from live servers, so I don't really remember exactly what fits on current servers. I don't really even have a level that I'm leveling right now. Primal Wrath is another AoE talent that was added. It's basically an AoE rip. It costs 20 energy just like a rip, and it generates damage based on how many common points you spend, but it also applies that to an AoE enemy target. So if you want to pop in and get a bunch of common points off the bat, let's say, again, these 3 train dummies, thrash them, bam, you got rips for everybody. So now everybody's hit with a rip. It is not quite as I guess as hard hitting as a normal rip. A normal rip for 5 common points is 3,000, almost 4,000 damage over 24 seconds. This one is for 5 common points, 570 plus rip for 120 seconds. The question, I guess, is what is this plus rip part? So what I want to try out here is, first of all, generate full common points on the enemy, and then put a rip. Normal rip is making the enemy bleed for about 237 every few seconds, but the number is 237 unless it crits. So now my question is, if I apply the other rip, which is the Primal Wrath, how hard is that going to tick on the trained dummy for? 237, so it's exactly the same rip, the only difference is duration. So at 5 common points, this rip is actually exactly the same as a normal rip, just at a shorter duration. So in some sense, you can actually replace Primal Wrath and rip and just throw rip out of your bars completely. This also works well together if you're running Sabertooth. Sabertooth, the way it functions is Ferocious Bite deals more damage, but also refreshes duration of your target, of the rip on the target. What this does though is, let's say if you put a 1 common point rip on the enemy, like let's say you just open up with a shred, and you're going to put 1 common point rip. But if you generate 5 common points and you get a 5 common point bite on the enemy, instead of being a 1 common point rip, it's going to refresh to a full 24 seconds worth of a rip. So rip basically is very similar now, at least from what I remember, to rupture, where rip will always deal the same amount of damage. The only difference is the duration of that rip. So in a way, you can actually replace rip completely with Primal Wrath. So that's how you'll be applying your rips. And then if it's a single target situation, with your Sabertooth, you'll always be able to extend it to full anyway. So it's like you cleave and single target, and it basically makes rip AOE, but now you have 2 different abilities, rip and Primal Wrath. It's actually good that they have 2 separate abilities, because in PvP, maybe there'll be a target you want to put a rip on, but maybe there'll be a target next to it that is crowd controlled, and you don't want to put a bleed on both of them to break that CC. So it's a good idea to have 2 of them. But in a sense, I guess, you could actually just combine them together. There's a couple other synergies with this ability as well. It also synergizes with Balance Affinity, so if you have, I guess, a wider cleave of AoE, the same thing goes for your rip. It has a wider cleave, so if you're, let's say, in Mythic Plus dungeons and you're trying to skirt around enemies that have maybe some kind of an AoE effect, you can keep a distance while being able to apply your dots, while also not being right on top of them in the middle of, like, the fire and the bad. In PvP, this gives you, again, a little bit more range, which is kind of cool, which is one of the advantages of a feral. You know, I mean, you're melee, but you have, like, a little bit extra, I guess, room to work with. There's also another synergy with level 75 row, but first I want to talk about the changes that happen to the level 75 row. If you're not aware of all these changes, this row is mostly about energy regen and play. If you're not aware exactly of the changes to happen to feral, whether you play in Legion or BFA, Soul of the Forest grants your finisher moves 5 energy back, and your finishers deal 5% more damage. Savage Roar makes you deal 10% more damage, and you have 10% energy regen while in cat form. So it's a passive energy regen from, I think, a legendary that used to have like a ring. And Incarnation is basically cost of your abilities reduced by 40, and your maximum energy increased by 50. 3-minute cooldown, the big one, lasts 30 seconds. So Savage Roar actually got buffed a little bit. They reduced the energy cost of this ability from 30 to 25, again to help ferals a little bit with the energy regen aspect. And I don't remember last time Savage Roar had a 10% energy regen while in cat form, so if you're coming back to this class from Legion maybe, then you might be kind of surprised, but they basically baked the legendary effect into this, which is good. I feel like ferals are a little bit weird on energy. Now we can finally talk about the insane synergy between Soul of the Forest and Primal Wrath. The way the Primal Wrath works right now, at least on training dummies, is it applies rip on multiple enemies, but it functions as a separate finisher for every enemy that you hit. So let's say I'm gonna go and waste all my energy, and if you remember how Soul of the Forest functions, it'll grant you 5 energy when you use a finishing move, and your finishing moves will deal 5% more damage, but the main aspect is the energy regen. So I'm just trying to waste a bunch of my energy as much as I can until I'm full, and now what I'm going to do is just hit the enemies with a Primal Wrath. Oh, never mind. They actually, now, for a little bit in patch 8.1, there was a weird synergy between Primal Wrath and Soul of the Forest. The way the Primal Wrath functioned on PTR at one point is allowed you to almost look at the game as if you're applying a rip on every enemy for each hit. So, like, let's say if you got a Primal Wrath going on 3 enemies, you could say you just got a common points on Primal Wrath in everybody. What it would do is Soul of the Forest would count every single one of those rips as a separate finisher and grant you full energy. That was a thing for a bit, but Blizzard removed it. So now Soul of the Forest is a bit more consistent with all the other talent trees, so it shouldn't be quite as, I guess, drastic of a a energy regen difference. And for a while it made Primal Wrath the most competitive option in this row because of the energy regen one-more combo it had with Soul of the Forest. But it looks like maybe Scent of Blood might be the better talent if you would just want passive energy regen, we could just kind of AoE enemies a lot. So I guess it's going to be more of a question like what kind of playstyle do you have. But I feel that if anything, this offers feral druids a lot more options in how they want to play, and the energy regen and the bleed playstyle of their class. And I like that they actually have an AoE tree, an AoE row. I think this class is actually getting more shapely by the patches updates. I haven't seen a huge update to the spec. I think there'll be a patch that'll be maybe like an 8.1.5 that'll do some kind of a huge class overhaul. And I'm kind of expecting something like that to come out in the future, because in the past, at least in Legion, Blizzard did a lot of changes in 0.5 patches. So like 7.1.5 was a huge change, 7.2.5 had a big change, 7.3.5, I don't remember if there was a change at all for that. Did we even have 7.3.5? I don't think so. But I think Feral is looking like one of those specs that might need that kind of update if this 8.1 update isn't enough to make the spec feel a bit better. I feel like a lot of us will find out if the spec is going to be in a good place or not by the time 8.1 releases, as in with all the other changes that is still to come to the spec, that is, if Blizzard is going to make any. So there it is. This is the Feral Druid video that I wanted to do for you guys, just to explain exactly what is new with the spec and what has been going on. There are a few Azeroth talent changes that were added, but I don't have a max level character to play with. There's only one that really changed recently. It was Gushing Lacerations. There's probably other Azeroth traits that are simply missed. But I felt like reviewing this class because I felt like it wasn't really getting enough coverage on the on YouTube. And it is a class that I used to play and kind of enjoyed back in Legion. And if Blizzard makes enough changes and maybe some radical changes to this class, I would want to be one of the first people to cover it and take a look at it. Because, you know, it could potentially be a brand new alt, and if it gets a brand new playstyle and it's super fun, then why not, right? Anyway, that's my video on Feral Druids. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts, and if you guys, somebody who wants to make some kind of changes to Ferals, I mean, you can comment those down below to tell me what would you rather have. But also, I feel like it's a good idea to get active on the forums if you really want some changes to happen. I would go and make a post on the forums telling you some of the things that you think should be changing. It seems that Blizzard is finally listening to the community. With them bringing a currency for Mythic Plus dungeons and such, I think it's a good change. So if they're listening to the community, they're making changes happen, then it's a good idea to at least put your voice out in case they might just, you know, go ahead and make a change that might be for the better for the spec. So be proactive, do what you can. But anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see all of you in another video.